Welcome back. Almost 20 minutes past 8 on this Monday morning. The national call to zero-rate sanitary pads comes at a time that an expedition to climb Mount Kilimanjaro has just been completed once again to support the girl child and donate pads. This time is the chance of SABC reporter Anda Nqonji, who was part of the expedition that also saw a 10-year-old summit almost to the peak. But I mean, he just got close to the peak for the first time in history, but it was not all plain sailing, and that's never a true statement when it comes to Mount Kilimanjaro. Anda, welcome back and congratulations on summiting Mount Kilimanjaro.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to do. A lot of people think, oh, no, not again. We're talking about summiting Mount Kilimanjaro. It is a difficult expedition. How did you handle? How was it for you?
Indeed, it is difficult. It was one of the most painful things I've ever had to do in my entire life, especially doing it out of selflessness and having to do it for someone else. The summit night was actually the worst. We left the base camp around 11:30 evening, actually at night, and the temperatures had dropped to a -17. And that is when everything began. Altitude sickness really got me just at about 5,000 meters above sea levels. And from there onwards, everything was just a mess. I had been throwing up. I had a terrible and the most terrible headache I've ever had in my entire life, but I had to keep pushing. And at some point, I remember feeling like I'm hallucinating, even though, you know, nothing was happening. I started seeing things out of the blue. But fortunately for us, we had the best guide ever who made it a point that he takes us through everything, and who kept on telling us that these are symptoms, this is not sickness, and he left everything entirely to us. So it was really terrible. It was painful, but as I had said before, that I would do this any day if I had to again, because it was for a good cause. I actually went out there to attempt to raise an annual supply of sanitary pads for underprivileged girls, and that is something I think is actually wonderful and something I would consider doing again if I had to.
Fantastic. I mean, it's a great cause to do it for. And I think what made it even more special this year was the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation brought his little boy along with, and he made it all the way to Stella. And I mean, that is absolutely massive. Now, for people that are not too sure of how Kilimanjaro works, you've of course got 3 different stops. You first get up to Gilman's Peak, then you get to Stella, and then of course is the summit, Uhuru. But, you know, Stella is just before Uhuru, and his dad said, boy, you're not going any further. It's too windy, you don't sound too good. But I mean, 10 years old to make it that far. What was it like going with him?
He is a really strong fellow, and as you mentioned, that his dad actually tried to stop him and he didn't want to. There was a point where he was like really tired, he was exhausted, you know, it was the middle of the night. He had been walking for some time, and you know, he just felt a little fainty, and he collapsed at some point, not entirely. And you know, the porters managed to catch him, and they put him on their back, and they went with him. However, the moment he woke up, he wanted to push on, he wanted to keep going, you know, and his father kept on asking him, wouldn't you want to go back? And he had always said this, he wants to do this because he wants to raise enough money to buy sanitary towels for young girls. And to think of that level of comprehension for a 10-year-old was also amazing. You know, he kept on walking and walking and pushing, despite the fact that there was ice all over the place. There was so much snow. We passed through a lot of stuff, you know, painful as it was, but he just wanted to keep on pushing, and he wanted to walk on his feet regardless of the fact that people were actually offering to carry him. And yes, as you mentioned, there are 3 points. There's at Gilman's Point, which is the 3rd highest. There is Stella Point, and then there is the Uhuru Peak, which was which is referred to as the Peak of Africa. He managed to go that far, and even when he got to the Stella Point, he wanted to keep pushing. He told his daddy that he doesn't want to turn back. He said that he could see the Uhuru Peak, and that his father said they would get there, and that he wanted to continue. But his dad rather had to take a decision and stand firm and tell him that he cannot go anymore.
I'm very happy to hear that, because, you know, when you stand there and you look from Stella to Uhuru. You think you could just touch it, but that's a good 2.5-hour walk. So I'm glad that he turned him back.
Indeed.
Just finally, and as we wrap this up, you know, all of this happening at a time, obviously with the cause. I mean, we've seen many of our SABC employees embarking on this journey, trying to raise awareness, trying to raise funds, and also it's all in the name of sanitary towels. Now, we had a great announcement coming out that the basket of zero VAT items is also going to include sanitary products, nappies, and much, much more. This is a great, great successful story. Finally, I mean, the fact that these are part of VAT, I mean, it's never made sense, but the fact that government is looking at making these part of zero VAT is very, very important.
Indeed, it is. You know, this initiative is part of the Imbumba Foundation's initiative to try and raise hype. Basically, a lot of people had been asking me, what is the relevance? You know, why would you go to a mountain and climb a mountain in an attempt of raising sanitary towels instead of just, you know, raising enough money and giving it to the children or being able to buy those pads? But the whole idea of this initiative was to raise hype, you know, to build some networking channels, to say that this thing is happening. There's a number of young girls out there who do not have sanitary towels. There's a number of people who need to choose between buying bread and buying sanitary towels. So much hype has been raised around this thing, and I think that this initiative has finally raised its main concerns, and that it is finally being taken into consideration, and that something is finally being done about it, which was the main motive behind it.
Good. Well done. Bask in the glory, go and rest. It's very, very tiring, but I can already see you back to work. So there's no rest. I know the summit took place on the 9th of August on Women's Day. It was the second time that this expedition had gone up this year. You remember we covered our other SABC journalists that went up there, and they did a fantastic job on Mandela Day. So well done to Gillian Pillay. And of course, we've got now the next one to summit, Anda Nqonji, and she did a great job. So well done to her. Right, the time, 25 minutes past 8.